Welcome to the Real Board Loft. I'm Trip Forman, and today we're going to be talking about the Christenson Outlaw. This is a new traditional longboard shape from Christenson that just came out, and we've had a chance to ride it for quite a few sessions, and we want to share our experience on the board. So first off, getting up with Chris Christenson and asking him about this board, it looks a lot different than a lot of longboards out there. So we're like, Chris, you know, what was in your head when you designed the Outlaw? Like, kind of what inspired you? And it was interesting what Chris came back with. He said the inspiration on this board is like the hot dog era of longboarding, and kind of like where longboarding started to transition into shortboarding. So like 1967, 1968, where the wide points were back, a lot of pivot in the turns, and you know, basically taking that era of longboards and surfing, and then everything that's been learned in shaping till now, and then you know, designing a new board based off of that style of board. So the board that we used in you know, for surfing and getting a feel of this board is a 9.0, and this is my own board that was made for me. It's a custom. It's a 9.0 by 23 by 3 5/16, and I'm a little bit over 200 pounds. So, you know, this board is shorter than what I was riding, you know, typically for a traditional longboard. Traditional longboards, you know, meaning that it's got a soft rail all the way to the back of the board. Like, there's no hard edge out the back. It's an upturned rail here, here, and even back here. It'll have a hard edge like straight off the tail, but on the rail, there's no hard edge. So a lot of longboards will transition from a soft edge to a hard edge. Like a quote-unquote traditional longboard is gonna have a soft edge all the way back. And with this board, Chris was trying to design it so you could ride the board shorter and have it be something that fit into the pocket better, was more fun in the turns, and was also more accessible and kind of open to riding it more aggressively. Not necessarily riding it like high performance longboard style, but you know, really putting a lot more meat into the turns and just throwing more spray and having more fun on a traditional style longboard. When you look at a lot of the longer traditional style longboards, they're great for, you know, parking up on the nose, or like what a lot of people call perching up on the nose. But they're a little bit more critical for fitting into the wave, just because of how long and how flat they are and how focused they are on just nose riding. With this board, Chris wanted to make something that was had that same feel and that same glide and that same trim of that style board. It be more accessible to more surfers, and then for people that want to push the performance of it, it's going to be a smaller package that fits in a tighter space. So going back to the length, like, you know, I'm normally riding a board like this, like 9.6, 9.8. I'm able to drop down to a 9.0. Chris typically says that, you know, stock dimension to stock dimension, you can easily drop 3 inches in a board like this, and also 6 inches is not out of the question. And you think about when you drop from a 9.6 to a 9.0 in a board that's really flat, that's actually a big jump, especially when you have a board with not a lot of rocker in it, because it allows you to not feel like you're fitting this giant peg into into a space it's not supposed to fit into, like on small waves, which is like where you're riding this this type of board. Now you look at the foam flow on it. I think the two things that stick out the most on this board is the wide point. Like, the wide point's way back on this board, so it's 17 inches in back of center. So, you know, just eyeing it, the wide point on this board is about here. You know, where center, you know, would be about here. There's, you know, obviously some boards like a C bucket, it would be forward of center. You know, a traditional longboard like a Bonneville would be closer to center. This board, or the Bandito, are back of center, because they're like pig style longboards, and they're, you know, further back in the board. What that does is it gives a lot of curve back in here. It gives a lot of width, and it gives a lot of pivot in the turn. So you're able to fade into the wave and then pivot really easily, and then also, if you want to, a lot faster, and with a nice flow to it as well. The other thing that really sticks out is the tail. So I'll take it here out of the grass, and you're able to see, you know, it's just a slightly tuned version of a square tail. So rather than just having a square tail that would just be straight square, Chris went with this, you know, cool, like super shallow swallowtail. And there's a lot of, like when you're right up on top of this thing, there's a lot of different curves and blends of the curve going on that just give it a little bit more style and character than just a straight square tail. It gets pretty thin back in here as well, but again, with that soft rail all the way to the back. So you got the wide point back, you've got this tail. I'd say the other thing that really sticks out is the nose shape. So wide point back, any wide point back is gonna make the board look narrower in the nose. So you can look at the nose and it's a moderate width nose. It's not, you know, like a gigantic nose. And so that combined with the short length of the board, again, like fits it into the wave nice. You can also see it's not a round, like a full round nose. It comes to a little bit of a point in the front. So it's got the nice roundness to it, but then a little bit of a point. The other thing you'll see is the beak up front. So just a nice flat deck to a beak out the front. Up front, the board is pretty down rail up in here, and then you get to the back and it goes more 50-50 out the back. So it helps the performance of the board and the speed of the board, and then the paddling to have all of this foam compacted into a shorter length. Talking about the paddling, you know, and let's just say like off the beach the first session, like the thing that kind of jumped right out session number one, like right off the beach, was how easily this board paddles. Like, and again, that's going from like a 9.6 or a 9.8 down to a 9.0. And also at the same time, having ridden a bunch of other 9.5s and 9.6s, like my gliders, which are 10.0 and 11.2, and then going down to a 9.0. This thing didn't lose any paddle ability. If actually it gained paddle speed and acceleration out of the gate against a lot of 9.6 like traditional longboards. Super easy to get going and get going really fast. And then the other thing that was neat was, you know, Chris is like, hey, like you can hang 10 on this thing. It's way more fun, you know, it's way more of a like a Cheater 5 style longboard than a hang 10 board. But the Cheater 5s on this thing are insane. Like you get going with the down rail up here, you get going really fast, and then when you start hanging on the nose with one foot and leaning back, like it just goes into a like super acceleration mode where you just start flying. And this is all like on super small surf. We've had like 1 to 3 foot surf. It seems like almost forever. So we've had like a lot of different sessions and conditions, and every once in a while it'll kind of bump up to like chest high sets. And Chris said like kind of about chin high is the top on this board, but it's just been like persistent 1 to 3, so it's been really, really fun surf for trying this thing out. Why does he say chin high? Like we had a couple of chin high sets, and you could definitely tell when you get into that range of surf, it's the control of the board is still there, but the speed of the board, like by having that softer rail, it doesn't have that six gear that a sharp rail at the back does. So it'll get up to a good high speed, but then it won't be able to then go faster than that because you've got the wrap of the water around that rail. You don't have a clean release to drop the water. And that's not a negative thing. It's just, that's the way that these type of boards are designed. You know, other things on this board that are just, you know, super fun is it's hard to verbalize it, but it's literally, it's like the feel of going straight. Because like if you go straight on a shortboard or you go straight on a like, you know, mid-length start to feel fun, you know, like straight, but like this thing, like the trim, like getting into the right part of the wave on a board like this and just letting the wave do the work is really, really fun. Just the sensation that's coming up through your feet. And this board, like with all the different bottom curves and belly and the down rail to the softer 50-50, to the wide tail, to the wide point back, all of those different things kind of blend in to make it a really, really fun board to surf and kind of electrify surf that could get boring, you know, like over a longer period of time. I think also like for people that are used to riding longer longboards, having something that has a similar through the foot feel, like if you're used to having like a 9.6 traditional longboard, and then you get a 9.0 of this, it's gonna have that same through the foot feel, but it's gonna be a lot more maneuverable in the pocket. Chris actually had a really good analogy. He said, you know, like if the Bonneville and the Dead Sled are like the jazz of traditional longboarding, he said this thing was the heavy metal of traditional longboarding, just because of the angles that you could take and the late drops and the turns but still have it be a traditional feel, and also, like you said, accessible to a lot more people. You know, size-wise, like you'll see this board in the upper 8, like I've seen an 810. You know, 9.0 is going to be a really popular board. 9.3s, you know, the biggest you'll probably ever see it is a 9.6, because that would be somebody sizing down from like a 10.0 or a 9.9. But you know, that 810 to 9.6 range is kind of where you're going to see this board. And then as far as fins, it definitely likes a big fin. Like, and we've always found that the fin that balances out a board is really proportionate to the width of the tail. And you can see that because the wide point's so far back, the tail on this board's really, and also because it basically ends in a square tail, the tail of the board's really, really wide where the fin is. So the fin that we used on this board, it's a True Ames Greeno 4A, and this one's 9 3/4. And we actually had a couple times, we started it out dead center in the box, and we had a couple of times where the in a backside wrap into the pocket, the board actually like flat spun out, like the fin like just gave out, and the board like almost like lazy Susan'd out from underneath us. We moved the fin back. I mean, it wasn't that much at all. It was like a little bit more than probably in between, probably about 1/3 of an inch back in the box, and then that problem was eliminated. So it's just a little click back of center in the box with this 9 3/4 really seemed to balance the board out with that wide tail. So on a lot of the Christenson boards, especially the mid-lengths, like if you're getting this to go like as a smaller wave alternative to your mid-lengths, you know, it's always like go small, go small, go small with the fins. Like this one's actually the opposite way. Like if you go too small on this board, like you're gonna start blowing the tail out. You know, like you won't have enough fin to balance the width of the tail. So it is the Christenson Outlaw, super fun, traditional shape, inspired by kind of the end of the longboard only era, the 67, 68 era of longboarding, the hot dog era, and just a super fun all around, you know, ripper for having fun in the summer, 1 to 3 every day. If you got any questions about the Outlaw, you can give us a call at the shop, or you'd like to place an order, either for a stock board or write up a custom order, you can give us a call at the shop, 252-987-6000, or you can look us up online, realwatersports.com/surfing. Thanks for tuning in.